What's up, everybody? Welcome to Among the Fence. My name is Aaron. Today we're checking out the new album, The Nothing That Is, which is the 7th studio album from the New Jersey native deathcore band Fit For An Autopsy. You really can't find a bad album within their discography, but I gotta say they became more of a household name when they released Sea of Tragic Beasts in 2019, which kind of says a lot about how long this band has been grinding because they've been around since 2008, which makes them part of the OGs, I guess you could say, along with Whitechapel, Thy Art Is Murder, After the Burial, and even Suicide Silence. I didn't really get into them until they released Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell in 2015, which also introduced Joe Bad as their new and current vocalist. To this day, that is my favorite album from them, but it would be absolutely silly to deny that each album afterwards progressively just got better, especially with each listen. I would say that the more you listen to these albums, the more you take in and the more they become just epic. They're so freaking monumental, especially all these years later. When I listen to Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell, it just hits so freaking hard, harder than it was the first time I heard it way back then. Then they released The Great Collapse in 2017, which is considered to be a fan favorite, at least until, they released Sea of Tragic Beasts. Their last album that they dropped, Oh What the Future Holds, is just top tier deathcore, but some fans were kind of turned off because they did present more of a clean vocal type of chorusy thing, which played a huge role within a lot of the songs. And also they implemented a lot of just mainstream style music within the album itself. And I feel like a lot of people they just weren't that into it. But at the same time, I feel like it reached a lot wider audience. It made it more accessible, more digestible, and it has a lot of songs that you could go back and just listen to over and over again. It also made some of the same people a little nervous when they released Hostages, which is the first single and the opening track for this new album. This one examines the trauma and grief one carries throughout life and how it could create a very negative outlook on one's future and feeling like nothing's ever going to get better and you might as well always expect the worst. It comes in with the fat groove and big chords. There's also some dissonance thrown in there with the distorted vocals in the verse. The cleans in the refrain sound fantastic along with the lead melody. It really shines through though in the chorus with Joe's vocals in a way that we've never heard them before. The dark harmonies along with the lyrics are just so catchy and they make you want to sing along with them. Like I said before, it might have turned some people off, but for me, I just could not get enough. The hook is so freaking good and it gets stuck in your head. And this is coming from someone who absolutely hates clean vocal choruses in my core genres. I cannot stand them. It's a huge turnoff in almost any metalcore song. But for this, it just, I don't know, it stands out, which says a lot to me. And then they doubled down on their next single titled Savior of None, Ashes of All. It has a very death metal style verse with snarly vocals followed by kind of a bouncy breakdown-ish pre-chorus, but then the chorus is full of high cleans once again. I think it works so well with the hi-hat forward drums, which are pretty open to let everything else shine through. The back half of this song is really dark and it takes a heavy turn as it goes into the breakdown. This to me is one of the more creative and musically complex songs that's off of the album. Even so, it isn't really that complex. It just goes to show how simple of a process they took in terms of their writing style, and they kind of took a step back to make these songs a little bit more traditional death metal, at least to me it seems like. And then they released the last single, which is titled Lower Purpose, which has more of a traditional Fit For An Autopsy kind of vibe to it, speaking of like early to mid 2010s. The riff and the verse makes you want to stomp around your room. The chorus has the haunting harmony in the background, which is something you very much expect from this band. As he's dreaming about getting revenge, the lyrics are pretty dark. It's super aggressive all the way through, mainly thanks to the drums, and the breakdown, I gotta admit, was kind of generic at first, at least until the vocals come in. Then it's like a kick to the nuts, or like when you're like a little kid on your scooter and you swing it around and then you accidentally hit yourself in like the ankle or in the shin. I feel like that's the kind of face you're going to make when the vocals come in on the breakdown. Spoils of the Horde feels like another throwback thanks to the haunting melodies in the intro and the all-out aggression in the verse. The lead guitar has this really cool, quick riff, kind of genty part to it in the pre-chorus. And then when the chorus comes in, it's absolutely insane as all these sounds come together and they're all mashed together to make this giant wall of sound. And then you have the vocals that power through the mix so well. The unexpected guitar solo was all right, but then the breakdown comes in and that'll put hair on your chest as he's calling out a society that's built around deceit. And then we have songs like Weaker Wolves, which felt a little weaker. The riffs are pretty straightforward. The chorus is heavy but forgettable. It feels like an old school deathcore song again, but it's just a little too simple. And in its simplicity, it just kind of falls flat. The clean vocal sections that sound like a radio broadcast feel like something, again, that were used a very long time ago. It's not a bad song. It's just a run-of-the-mill, brutal deathcore song. It's just a bunch of chugs, very aggressive. Feels like it's mainly just there to get the pick going. And because of that, it just feels like a very generic sounding deathcore song. Something that Fit For Autopsy, to me, just isn't really known for. To me, they're a little bit more on the progressive side. And I feel like this is one of the songs that it just kind of fell flat. Then we have the song Red Horizon with its crazy sounding riff that sounds so freaking good in the chorus. There's just a ton of dissonance in the background of the verse, and the clean vocals in the pre-chorus match the atmosphere of this absolutely just brilliantly. Joe's vocals are absolutely phenomenal, and it shows just how much he's grown, especially when he's doing like the vocal layering in the outro, where he's just, his performance is just perfect, and his vocal choices of just how distorted he's going to fit along with all the other music around him, it just works so well. And then it flows directly into the title track, which has the same kind of riff and the same kind of lyrical themes. The guitar work from Tim and Pat are just brilliant in every single transition. To me, this is like the top, like the peak of the guitar riffs throughout the entire record. The chorus has some very powerful moments to it, and the verses feel absolutely unhinged. And I can say the same about the drum work. I don't think it could be any better whatsoever throughout this entire album, but again, it really shines through throughout the title track. And then we have the song Lurch, which shows just how versatile the drumming can be as it mellows out as the whispered vocals in the intro kind of take over. The verse comes in with a very explosive riff and a yell, and it feels like one giant buildup going into the chorus. It's got a really slow groove to it, making it feel like you're floating as he's describing us as being like observers of the world that's falling apart, and just we're kind of helpless within just our lives in general right now. And the imagery of lurching to our hearse is absolutely amazing. It makes the breakdown feel that much darker. Lust for the Severed Head demonstrates more amazing guitar work. The verse is super quick while the chorus is stompy as heck. There's a lot to take in on this song. Verse 2 is just a mess of muted guitar scale runs and blast beats, and the chorus is like the only grounding section, but at the same time it's like the heaviest part of the song. The guitar solo is super jarring. I love how they worked it into a song. It just makes you feel very uneasy and builds so much tension all the way through. And then that brings us to the closing track, The Silver Sun. The intro of this kind of reminds me of a Tool song. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, but just the atmosphere it brings and the drumming and even the vocals, at least at first, just at little moments and times here, not, all the way through. It's not a Tool rap. I know a lot of people are going to say it's not a Tool song. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's got little hints of some of that, just that kind of vibe to it. But then as soon as it goes into the verse, it completely changes. The refrain is very simple, but it makes its point clear. Verse 2 is creepy thanks to its very meek demeanor. The chorus is catchy and it makes you want to keep going back to it. The cleans in the bridge were all right. I wasn't that big of a fan of them. The more I listened to it, even I just wasn't really getting into it. I feel like it would have been a little bit cooler if they accented it with some distorted vocals just like in the background, or even just every once in a while, just kind of throwing it out there just to make it feel a little bit more passionate. But at the same time, there was just a lot of sorrow felt within the clean vocals, and it did have the passion in there as well. So it still kind of worked. It just, I don't know, sound wise, sonically, I just feel like the distorted vocals helping it out would have done a lot more. This is still a really good closer though, as it kind of closes off this album of despair in a very melancholy tone. I really enjoy this album, and you get the feeling that they did basically whatever they wanted to do on it. With their last album, What the Future Holds, like I said before, they implemented some mainstream stuff into it, so you get a little bit more fan service. You get stuff that's easier to digest, stuff that sticks in your memory. There are a lot of memorable moments throughout this album that I feel like will get better with every listen, but there weren't too many like major standout moments, like songs that you really have to go back to and listen to over and over again, like Two Towers, Far From Heaven, Savages and Shadows, and Collateral Damage. I basically just named off half of their last album. I do find myself wanting to go back and listen to this, but mostly just the whole album in general, because it just flows so beautifully. And because of that, I feel like it needs to be looked at and listened to as more as just one cohesive thought. You know, the melodies are really strong and the harmonies are really strong throughout this entire thing. I feel like they put more thought and effort into the storytelling in terms of the atmospheres and the overall sound all the way through this album. So sure, there's going to be some songs where you're going to be like, this thing is sick, I need to hear it over and over again. But it's not going to be like the last album, where it was almost like every single song was banger after banger. They tried to just make one 40+ minute long banger instead of having you focus on individual parts of it. At least that's how I take it. So with all that said, I gotta give The Nothing That Is by Fit For An Autopsy at 8.6 out of 10. But I want to know what you guys think. There's been a lot of mixed reviews kind of popping up here and there on this album, mostly on Reddit, and people commenting on my New Music Friday videos saying they like it or they're not really that into it. So leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of The Nothing That Is, what you rate it, what your favorite song is. Also, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like. It helps out so much with YouTube's algorithm, and it will keep my videos popping up in your recommended section. And of course, if you want to support me further than that, please feel free to subscribe and ring the bell icon. Doing any of those things helps me out so much, and I appreciate it more than you can imagine. And I appreciate you guys more than you can ever imagine. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me just sit here and talk about music. And I hope you have a good rest of your day or night, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I'll talk to you guys next time.